I'm getting rid of my face. No, we don't want to know about those stars. It's the same one each time. Let's get rid of his. Exit. Okay, so if the person beside you didn't get that shortcut created, show them how to create the shortcut real quick to our Zoom meeting from that URL. Make sure that you know how to do it. Okay, so I've got idle open without any crashes. I created a new file that's going to hold my Python code without anything crashing. Is everybody else here okay? We're all here together. All right. Now, got it on Zoom so we can all see it, hopefully. Or you can move that out of your way, whichever you prefer. We need some comments here.
I think everyone should turn their audio on.
You should hear some serious feedback. I don't think most of you have mics, so unless you've added something, just the regular computer audio.
So we can hear your voice coming
Ooh,
through.
that would be awful. Don't do that. I hear an echo already. Stop it. Okay, for our comments, I'm going to say this is the payroll calculator. There he is. He's there. Yeah, I made it a flower box because it just looks so pretty that way. Developer is you.
Hey, get rid of that arrow.
From prelude to programming, because that's where we got our stuff here. So I'm going to say our purpose is to calculate pay, even though we know our purpose is to figure out how to do if statements in Python. I'm going to stop talking if I don't quit hearing that echo. You guys will be on your own. Make it stop. So, thank you. No echo. Just been a hard day already. The college bought me a laptop after all this time, and so I was really excited about it. And every time I go to use it, the IT staff is there needing to do something with it. So I'm getting all behind on all my stuff instead of getting ahead with my new computer. So I hear people typing away. What are you doing? Are you guys making this program already? Don't even need my help. That's awesome. What do we need in this thing? We need some variables, right? I'm just going to set them up kind of like they did in Raptor. So we'll put in a comment, declare our variables, and we want pay rate, and we're going to set it equal to 0. I'm teaching C# and Java also this semester, so if you see me putting semicolons at the end of things, you can just yell, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, so we have some variables. Do what? Do they? No. Yes, no.
Yeah, that's how I just go to pay. I just put semicolon.
See what I do? That's why they say you should never say wrong thing. Those teachers that show you bad examples, they're bad. Hello. Uh-huh. I know I sent you an email with exactly where Raptor is.
Right.
In that
Where do you want me to take it? If you have me have to take it up DSS, you have to send them a note to say that needs to be installed. I
It
can't.
doesn't. I sent you an email telling you where it is on that computer. You don't have to have it installed. It's already there. She was able to do it without any problem by following the instructions on how to
Yeah, that's
navigate
why
the
I
pad.
used that. I'll
Right, so I told you it's on the S drive. So can we do this after?
Yes,
I'm
yes.
not here in
Just
front of the
let me
whole
know.
class. So I don't know if there's a seat for you.
I'll find
We got overloaded here. Yep, you got one. All righty, we'll pick that up here in just a minute. All right, so we've got our variables here declared. We've declared all of these kind of as integers. We're okay with that. Python will take care of it. At least we know their numbers. Now let's output our welcome message. So our welcome message is going to say this program will calculate the weekly paycheck for an employee, comma. Can I go to the next line and just keep going, or?
No.
No, especially not within a string like this, right? This program will calculate the weekly paycheck for an employee, comma. Now, what I could do is end this string and put a plus sign to say that I want to concatenate more, and then I could continue on with a new string. So we have to watch what we're doing really carefully, but we can do that. So I'm going to make it two different strings that are just being joined together, just so it's easier to look at on the screen. Okay. You're so picky. Every time, you notice every time you do that, it sends my cursor way out into outer space, and I have to do a lot of mouse movement to get it back. So let's make sure it's worth it. Misspellings probably are. Okay, so beautiful output message. Can we run that? Let's run it. Can we test it right now and make sure we don't have any errors anywhere? Because we created this really big string that we're concatenating. Looks good. I didn't get any errors. I've got no red. My output says this program will calculate, it's spelt properly. This program will calculate the weekly paycheck for an employee, comma, including overtime if applicable. So it looks good. Everybody's okay? No problems so far? We'll try to nail them or nip them in the bud before they get to be a big problem, because it can be harder to find after we have more code. So for this program now, we need to prompt our user for input. We had two different ways. We could print out that prompt, or we could use just the input statement. The first thing we want to prompt them for is the hourly pay rate. So let's go ahead and say we're going to set our pay rate variable. And we're going to set our pay rate variable equal to whatever our user inputs. And our message is going to be, what is the employee's hourly pay rate? Last time we were working with Python, which has been a few days, but the last time we were working with Python, we saw that the input statement always generated a certain kind of data. Does input generate a number or a string? String. So do we need to convert this data to a number before we put it into our pay rate field? We do. So let's make it be a double, because we used an integer before. Is double valid? Looks like Python doesn't like that. Do I want to say float? Is it like float? Oh, shoot. So now we're saying I want to input whatever the user types. It's going to be input as a string. We're going to convert it to a float and put it into our pay rate variable. Perfect. Now we need to get the hours that they worked. So hours is our variable that's going to hold our data. Again, we want to convert it to a number. I'm going to set it to a float. And we want our prompt to say, how many hours did that employee work this week? I hate the way idle just turns it all gray so you guys can't see it when I close those parentheses. Now we should have both pieces of input. So when we did this with our flow chart, the next thing we did was an if statement or a decision to see if this employee qualifies for overtime pay or not. So let's put a comment there. Does employee qualify for OT pay? So we haven't done an if statement before in Python. There are some rules. Let's go Google it and see what we can find online. I want to just open up a new window and I'm going to search for Python if statement. And remember, I usually put the language, the programming language first when I'm searching because I really don't want to see a lot of information about other languages, just Python. So sure enough, I've got this hands-on Python tutorial. This is from some college, right? LUC. I don't know where that's from. Then W3 Schools. W3 Schools is always a good place. So I'm going to click on that and see what they say. Well, it looks pretty simple. Here's an if statement. They say if condition and then colon. And that's exactly what we need. Now, for our if statement, we're going to need to make it a compound if, right? Because we want to check for the hours and the pay. So let's see if they tell us how to do that. They've got all sorts of examples here. Here's one, the and keyword. So easy enough. It's just the word and in Python. So how much easier can it be? Notice if we wanted an or condition, it would just be the word or. Great, so let's put that in. We want to check to see if our pay rate is less than 10 or $10 an hour and our hours is greater than 40. Do we need any equals on those? Do they get paid overtime if their pay is greater than or equal to 10? Let's see what our textbook said. Nope. So if they're $10, boom, no overtime. They make too much. $9.99, they get overtime. So you wouldn't want that penny raised. All right, so we didn't have to do any equals or anything like that in our if. But I do need to put in a colon. Now, if I leave the colon out, I'm going to get some weird results as I type. So watch my screen, if you would, before I do this. I'm going to press enter, and you'll see I go back to the beginning of the next line. Well, that seems right. Well, it's not. Now, if I put the colon in like I should have at the end of the if statement, when I press enter now, Python automatically takes me to an indented location. And everything within my if statement body has to be indented. So if I'm not getting indented properly, then I need to look and see if I forgot that colon. So let's update our quick reference guide before we go any further for our first if statement. So we have if, condition. So now this is why I emphasized our condition so much when we were looking at that presentation and looking at our chapter material, because the condition is the same whether we're using Raptor or Python or pseudocode or C# or whatever. Conditions are all the same. But after our condition, we have that colon. So the colon is required. Now, all of the code after my if statement is going to be my if statement body. So the if statement body must be indented. And this is really cool because in other programming languages, this is just a thing where we say you have to indent that if statement body or other programmers will get mad at you. With Python, they took it a step further and they said if you don't indent that if statement body, your code won't work because Python won't understand that it's part of your if statement. So they just took some of those kind of rules, programmer rules, and they said, we'll make it a rule. Awesome. So if that is true, we were supposed to calculate our pay rate by figuring out our overtime hours first. So I'm going to put all that under this if statement. It's kind of indenting weirdly. Now, a couple of other things here. When you're working with idle, when you decide how you're going to indent, it's usually going to be about 4 spaces for Python. That's perfect. If I press the space bar 4 times, that is way different than me pressing the tab key 1 time. And you better be consistent throughout your code or you end up with a really big mess. And when you look at it, you can't tell where the problem is. If I type spaces or press the tab key, can you guys tell any difference in my code? No, it looks the same, right? It's all blank. We can't tell. We can't see it. All we know is it's all blank. Python can tell. And it'll start complaining and saying, you have mismatched indentation. You have some indentation that's spaces, some indentation that's tab characters, and things won't work right for you. So if you look up here at your format menu, you'll see there's a bunch of stuff in idle because of that. We haven't had to worry about it before. But notice that they have things that you can try, like tabify region, untabify region, comment out the region, toggle tabs, new indent width. So we can change all of these settings, but it can sometimes be really problematic for us if we have something that's set in a way that we don't like. So be super careful with that. When you're thinking and you're at home and you're writing some code and it's really making your mind boggle, that's good. But don't just space around sometimes and then backspace, because you wouldn't believe what kind of mess we can have with our Python code. Now, when you're looking at this, you can also decide what you want your indent width to be. How many spaces do you want? And they say always use 8 when using tabs. So I think I'll set mine to 8. Now, when I press enter after this colon again, I should see that I'm indented. Is that 8? I'll take its word for it that it's 8. Now, I want every line of code that belongs in this if statement body to be indented under this if statement. How do I tell Python this if statement is over? I stop indenting. As soon as it runs into a line of code that's not indented, Python will be like, oh, this is outside of that if statement body. So our if statement is key and our indentation is key. So we want to calculate our overtime hours. And we decided it was equal to whatever hours our user entered minus 40. Now we know right here for this line of code, we know our hours is greater than 40, or we wouldn't be executing this line of code. So we should get a value there in our overtime hours. Now the next thing that we had to calculate for our overtime pay was their actual overtime pay. Overtime pay equals our overtime hours times 1.5 of our regular pay rate. So there's our first formula that we've really done in Python too. And it shouldn't be too big of a deal because it looks just like the formulas you've put in your pseudocode or the formulas that you've put in Raptor. And again, we just use those same math operations and we can do whatever kind of calculations we like. Now, after we calculate our overtime pay, we can calculate our total pay. And it's going to be equal to 40 times our pay rate plus our overtime pay. Do we need any parentheses in that calculation? Is it all okay?
Yes.
Yes, it's okay.
No, we need a parenthesis.
Where do you want parentheses?
Around 1.5 times pay rate.
Oh, I do like that one. Anyplace else? With our total pay, we want to multiply our pay rate times 40 first. It'll happen that way because of the way our calculation is ordered, but we could go ahead and add those parentheses just to make sure that was clear, because we do want to make sure that that calculation is read in that order. Now, this is our beautiful if statement in Python. Look at this, your very first if statement, and you made it a compound if, and you have more than one line of code that's executing as the if statement body. So just all sorts of great things. Let's add to it. Besides the fact that we've got a compound if with an and, we're going to add an else clause. Now, my else clause needs to be on the same indentation level as its matching if. So I'm going to backspace so that I can put my else keyword right lined up with my if statement. Now, my else keyword also has to have a colon at the end to indicate to Python that it has a body. Now, again, when I press enter, because I put that colon on my else clause, idle should keep me indented properly. You're not getting indented?
Yeah,
Oh, so go to your format. Okay. Try it. Maybe when we close and open idle, it'll be better. When we get done with this one, let's close idle and open it again before our next one. You got it? What's that? So it's making you guys awesome, yeah. He's like, great, just what I need is no problem. Okay, so if this person doesn't get overtime, we're going to calculate their total pay equal their hours times their pay rate. And that's all. So that's the end of our else clause. So I'm going to backspace to go back to the beginning of the line. And now we can generate our output. So we got everything all calculated. We're ready to send it out. So what we want to print is the pay for this employee for this week is $ plus total pay. Now, notice that our string ends after the $. Then we have the plus sign to tell Python we want to add more to our print output. And what we want to add is that total pay variable. It seems like last time we had some trouble trying to print out a numeric value like this. Was there something that we needed to do? You remember? Let's run it, it'll tell you. I'm going to run this. Okay, this program will calculate the weekly paycheck for an employee, blah, blah, blah. What is the employee's hourly pay rate? I'm going to make this person get 12 bucks an hour. How many hours did the employee work this week? 45. Oh, so there it crashed. What line is that on? 32. Is there a way in idle we can see our line numbers? Oh, do you have a syntax error somewhere too? Oh, it's mad on him? Are you guys helping each other? Getting everything figured out? Get them all figured out. Everybody's got different errors. I want you to get to this error I've got. Okay, do you have that error? Hey, come with me, please. Do you have this error that must be string, not float? Why is that? What line is it on?
32.
Which line is that? Have you figured out how to get line numbers? Did you look at help on idle to see if you could find those line numbers? Let's go search. Go on, go find it. How can you find line numbers on idle? Yes, sir? Yes, sir. Did you find it?
Yeah.
Where is it?
And just click on it.
Just click on it.
And it says in the lower right hand corner.
Like this, right here?
No, like on your idle.
Uh-huh.
On your idle, go on it and just click on one of your lines, and on the very bottom corner it tells you.
Ah, tricky. Can you guys hear him?
No.
All right, he said, I didn't think you could. He said if you're in idle and you click on a line down here in the corner, which you can hardly see of mine, it tells you what line number that is. So that's a way. Yes, sir?
Please get a syntax error I can't find.
Okay, hang on, we'll find it. But it seems to me like I should be able to set up idle to show me line numbers. I'll let you guys find that. We'll get his syntax error straightened out. Before we do that, though, I want to know what this error is. It's saying line 32. That's the last line of code. I'm waiting for you guys yet.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to hear what I'm supposed to do.
I found something that says.
One way. Good job.
Everything that's new.
Guys can't find it?
Oh, wait, print. Capital P, not lower. Wow. Let's try this.
Okay, they found it. All right. He's highlighting this. What do we need to do? How can we make that total pay be a string? STR with parentheses.
Go check everything else. That's all it looks like. Let's try it.
STR parentheses. Now, Braden up here said we could also change that plus sign to a comma, because if we use a comma in our print statement, it handles it better and it doesn't care about it not being a string. So either one is a good solution. We should work now. Let's see. Okay, so, oh wait, we'll say this is an Amazon person. They're going to get that 15 bucks an hour. Does Amazon pay overtime? I don't know. Is that right? $630. How could I test? As a programmer, do I need to check to see if that's right? Yeah, I need to check to see if that's right. Yeah, I do. So I'm going to say that they had 40 hours at $15. 40 times 15 equals $600. Plus they had 2 hours at 15 plus half of 15, so $7.50. So 2 hours at $22.50.
If they make over $10 an hour, they don't get overtime.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, she's smart.
Look at her being all sneaky. So, should you test some more? Test for somebody that does get overtime. So I want $9.42. And again, we could calculate to make sure that we're getting things correct.
Just write it.
Oops, didn't do it right. 40 times 9 equals 360 plus our 1350. Looks right. I think we got it. Okay, so we need to update our quick reference. So our if condition is followed by the colon. What else? We saw the else keyword has to have a colon at the end of it. And so I'll put that the colon is required. The else statement body must be indented. Now, anything else that you want to note in your quick reference guide about that, do, because this is where you're going to be looking, or hopefully you'll remember to go back and look for when you're trying to remember how to do things. So if you want an example or something like that in your code, grab that out of your Python code, just pop it in there so that you'll have a good example too. Now you might want to update your print information too if you want to add that print number to print plus str around the number so that our number will be converted to a string. Beautiful. Now you guys have that most awesomest quick reference guide for Python ever. So nice if statements. Now there are some other types of if parameters that we can add, keywords. And the one that we really need to look at today is that if else. So right now I know that with Python I can say if a condition is true, do some things, else do some things. But what if I want to check something for multiple things? And that's what we need to do with our car price calculator. So let's try our car price calculator. Because we changed some settings in idle, I want to close it and reopen it completely. And then let's see if everybody's indent specification works a little bit better. We have some other editors that we can use for our Python code besides idle. I'd rather wait for a few more weeks until we start with them. Just focus on our Python. Yes, we need to focus on our Python. So let's create a new file. And I'm going to save this one. This is going to be our car price calculator. Again, remember to not save into this Python 3.6 folder on the C drive. We don't want to accidentally wipe out anything that's supposed to be out there. We want to save in our area. So this is going to be car price calculator.py. So we have our Raptor flowchart that you could open if you like. But I'll be going through looking at our book, kind of getting us all set up. So we'll try and do things a lot the way that we did them for the flowchart. So first, let's do our beautiful flower box. So I'm going to say our purpose is calculate car price based on options chosen. And anytime we're going through these, you can always shorten things if you like. If you want to test yourself and use different variable names and things like that, that's fine too. You just maybe get in a little trouble. Okay, first let's allocate our variables. We want base price, engine cost. Now remember with this one, we had a lot of variables. So we had engine cost, trim cost, and radio cost. And then we had selling price, which is our total. Then we had some string variables for this one also. So we're going to ask the user their name. So I'm going to set that to be an empty string. Now we'll have our engine choice is an empty string. Our trim choice is an empty string. And our radio choice is an empty string. We had two variables that we wouldn't change the value of. Oh, we have one more. I missed car make. And then our last two are kind of constants. Can't really do constants too much in Python, but in most programming languages, they say if you're going to create a constant value, name that variable in all uppercase. So I'm going to have shipping charge, which we'll set to 500, and dealer charge, which we'll set to 175. And we don't expect those to change within our program. So in this program, they just kind of already had our variables set up separately. First all the numbers, then all the strings, and then the constants. And we might like doing it that way. That's just one way of organizing our variables. For me, looking at this program, I could see organizing our variables too by like engine choice and engine cost being together, you know, radio choice and radio cost being together. So lots of different ways you could organize things. There's never really a right way or a wrong way, just kind of nice for you to try to organize things a little bit in some way. So this one is going to have a nice introduction. So let's start with that. Output our intro, our welcome. So first we're going to say a new car price calculator. Then a little bit more. This program will help you calculate the cost of a new car. So you guys really think they're going to bring those new computers in here tomorrow? I have not heard a word since they told me tomorrow was the date. Think they'll have Python installed on them for us next week? Probably not. You think by Thursday? I'm wondering what we should plan for Tuesday. Maybe a field trip. Huh?
Maybe fall break.
Oh, that's right. Maybe they'll have time. So it'll be Thursday before we even know. You guys don't have to come. I'm still bummed about, you know, they're going to make me go to that bacon, and more bacon breakfast Tuesday morning. So if I don't see you Thursday, you know where I am.
Hospital.
In the hospital.
I'll come visit you.
Would you? That'd be sweet. Oh, that's what you should do because you won't have Python anyways. Field trip, do the bacon, and more bacon hospital trip. Yeah. That's going to be a fun death experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's prompt for input. Now this one, we got a lot of input in this one, don't we? So the first thing we want to get is their name. So we're going to put that into our name variable, and our prompt is going to say, what is your name? Now, did you notice in that last program when we were typing our data, it was squished right up against that prompt? We didn't put spaces in there, so I'm going to put a space after that question mark, because I want there to be a little bit of a gap between my prompt and what the user types. Now, after we've got their name, we're going to ask them what kind of car they want to buy. So that'll be our car make variable. And we'll set it to say, what type of car do you want to buy? And then the last thing we're going to prompt for before we start asking them their choices for their different options is the base price of the car. So our input prompt is going to say, what is the base price of this car? Oop, and I need a space, and I didn't put a space at the end of the prompt of the previous one, so I'll fix that. So now we should have all their basic input. Let's run this. Make sure we don't have any syntax errors at this point. Speedy. My name, I want a, what do I want today? Fiat. A Fiat. I want a really expensive Fiat. Oh, it looks like it took it all. Everybody okay? No syntax errors? Got it all?
I have the syntax error.
Did you find it? Do you see it? I want one of those $200,000 cars.
I'll say 120,000.
It's a VR chat. Is what it's called. I thought about it.
You guys ready? Let's do our engine choice here. Now, when we're asking for our engine choice, we can put that all in one line of code. So let's say engine choice is going to be the variable we're going to use to save this data. And we want our prompt is kind of long. So let's see if this works for us, or we might decide we should do it a little different of a way. We'll see. Enter S for 6-cylinder. And then I'm kind of thinking that it would look better if I had each of these on their own line. Whenever I'm working with strings like this, I can actually send control codes out with my string to make certain things happen. Now, a control code is always going to be prefixed by the backslash character. Can you find the backslash on your keyboard? It's the one above your enter key. So that's the backslash. So I'm going to make mine say enter, and then I'm going to put /n, which says go to a new line. So that's a control code to issue a new line command. Now, before my S prints out, I think I want it to be indented from the enter. So I'm going to put a tab, and a tab character is a \T. So now I'm saying print out the word enter, then go to a new line and press tab, then start outputting this information. Now I'm going to close that string there, and I'm going to put a plus sign to tell Python I want to add more. Now it indented for me, and notice it indented right under the double quote, so that's okay. It's not using that as an indent level. It's like, well, you want to continue this string, so I'm going to put you right under where you started this string, so it'll be consistent, which is great, because the next thing I want to send out is another \n, \t, and this time I want E for 8-cylinder, and one more. This last one, I want a new line and a tab, and then I want to print out D for diesel engine. Now, notice all of that is the string that's going into my input command. So I can't close those parentheses until I get done with that whole thing. Let's try this and make sure it prints out the way we want it to. Oh, it doesn't look too bad, does it? See how we've got new lines and then we have tab characters. Now we could actually make that enter say more. Maybe we should say something like choose engine option or something there instead of that word enter. That might be a little bit more meaningful. So instead of enter, I'm going to make it say choose engine option. And I'm going to put that on a new line, and now everything is all nicely lined up, and we can actually kind of tell how it's going to print out. That we're going to have this on one line, and then each of those three options will be on their own line. Now we could squish that all into one. We don't have to separate it out with the different strings. That would be fine. But notice how it's a little bit more easy to read when we have it kind of separated like this. We start getting those backslashes in our control codes in our strings, it can be a little bit hard to read. So in our flow chart, we processed the engine choice as soon as they gave it to us. Do we want to do it that same way? We can, we might as well. We could gather all of our input and then process all of them. Or we can just do it this way and we'll keep it the same kind of logical flow as what our flow chart was. So in our flow chart, we said if engine choice equals, and notice with our equals, we have to do two equal signs in an if statement. So one equal sign assigns a value, it's an assignment statement. Two equal signs checks for equality. So it's a logical condition. Now, what do I want to check? I want to check if my engine choice is S colon. I want my engine cost be set equal to, let me find it, 150.
What would you set the engine?
Do what?
Like the engine, what would you set it at?
The engine what?
The engine with.
I set it to 8, but it's kind of doing whatever it wants.
Actually, hang on, let me try something real quick.
Did you figure it out?
You can do worse.
Okay, so we need to add that, but first let's add our alternatives. Now, if they picked S, we want to set our cost to 150. Now, do I want to do a whole nother if statement here to see if they chose E? I don't. I want it to be all part of one continuous if statement.
Can you do more than one else statement?
And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to say else if engine choice equals
Long language.
E. Do I have to, why?
Elif.
Elif, ugh. It saw it, it turned it orange. She's got me. Okay, so elif, which is else if, only being Python-y. If our engine cost is E, we want to set our engine cost equal to, too many engine words here, 475. Now I'm going to backspace again, and I want one more. Elif, engine choice equals D. I want to set my cost to 750. What if it wasn't any of those? How can I take that into consideration? That is exactly why we wanted this to all be one continuous if statement. If I just said, if engine choice equal S, set engine cost to 150. If engine choice equal E, set engine cost to 475. if engine choice equal D, set engine cost to $750. I wouldn't have any way to check to make sure they gave us a valid one. But now with using this ELIF, since we have it all tied together, we can put one final else clause and say if it wasn't any of those, we want to print out a message. You have made an invalid selection. I don't know why it's indenting so far. It's making it hard for us to tell where our code is. Next week, if we have computers and if we have Python and stuff, we'll try that other editor. Idle is pretty lame. Okay, so let's see how we're working. We want to see if we have any syntax errors first, and then see if it seems to be working properly. Okay, I got my name. I want a fiat for 200,000. Oh, my engine, choose engine option, SED. Oh, I need a space there. I'm going to put in an invalid choice. Oh, you have made an invalid selection, so that's working. Now, whenever we did our flow chart, didn't you guys decide you wanted to allow them to type uppercase or lowercase letters?
Yeah.
How can I fix that?
You can add more statements.
Or dot no,
That'd be fancy.
it is a hockey.
We'll use our or now. She's trying to get you all confused. No, we want to work on our if statements. So we want our or. So what do we want? Can I just put a lowercase s there? Can I just say equal s or s?
If you in choice equals to lowercase s, with the quotation mark.
Right. Now we need to do that for each one, right? So for one of our other choices, we'll use the upper and lower methods or functions. And then our D, we have plenty to choose from here. Oops, I have all uppercase. That's not going to do me any good. Should we test? Is it working? Think of some other things that we can do differently for our other options too, so we can try some things. E, it took it that time, didn't give me my error message. I still need a space. So we have some choices here. We could copy this code, but I'd like to try some different things. So let's put a comment here first that now we're going to do our trim choice. And I'm going to copy this input statement because that was quite huge. But now we've got to change some things. Now be really, really careful. This is why we don't do a lot of copying and pasting. We are not working with engine choice now. We need to make sure we make it trim choice. And then in our prompt, we want to say, choose trim option. And our trim options are V for vinyl, C for cloth interior trim, L for leather. Yep, L for leather. Now, Ashlyn was saying that we should use like 2 upper or 2 lower. Do we need to use that here, Ashlyn? Or do you want to use it in the if statements? Or what do you, huh?
If.
In the ifs? Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Could we just do it in our input statement?
Not in the input statement. You could just, well, it would have to be in the statement. It would be input dot, like all the input and then dot after.
So could we put it at the very end?
I'll try.
Let's see.
I mean,
It gets kind of picky with it. So do you want to go 2 upper,
I usually do lower.
lower? Either
I
is
mean,
fine.
you don't need 2. It's just
Lower.
It's just dot lower.
You got it.
Okay. Oh wait, no, go to upper.
Go to upper?
Our if statements are using upper.
Oh yeah, we have our, is that what we want?
Yeah.
Is it going to let us do it with that input statement though?
That's it's just a conversion. It's already a string, so it should. Yeah,
Should
you also
let
need
us.
to put the Yeah, you need parentheses.
Oh, okay, so it's a function.
Why is that not
So it doesn't like it because our input statement is really like
Yeah.
not quite a string yet because we haven't read it in.
Okay,
So what we could do, but we can do that though. Let's just do it on our next line. Oops, let me get rid of it here. So on our next line of code, we can just say trim choice equals trim choice dot upper. We do it that way? Or is it not liking that either? Come on, you silly thing. Python upper.
Yeah, it's upper.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
That
it
should be
has to
okay.
an if statement. Does it have to be the one?
That should work. Let's try it. I'm just going to, after this line of code, I'm going to print it out. Print trim choice. And make sure that it's converting it to uppercase. So to get to this point, I'm going to have to do some testing of the things so far. So I'll put in my name and my car and my price and a D for diesel. Now, we're going to go to upper, so I want to try a lowercase value. I'm going to try the C, and then I should see that print statement output that upper value. So it looks like it's working. It just didn't color code it for us because IDLE is not quite that smart. So it's all working. Now I want to get rid of that print statement because that was just real fast for debugging. But I am going to leave in this setting it to uppercase. That works great. Makes our if statements a lot simpler. Yeah, we always want to make things simpler if we can. So now let's add our if statements. If trim choice equals V, then we want trim cost to equal, we find it, 50. L if trim choice equals C, don't forget the colon, trim cost equals 225. Now for my last one, I'm gonna, sorry, thinking out loud. I'm gonna set my trim choice, if it's equal to L Then I want to set my trim cost equal to 800. And finally, if I have none of those, I want to print out a message. You have made an invalid selection. I want you to get rid of that, please. Get rid of that, please. Get rid of that, please. The else word.
It's not me.
It's not you. Who's doing that? Get rid of it. Thank you. Now, sometimes I will intentionally put errors in, and it's very important that you allow me to do that, all right? So I love you guys messing around, but make sure that sometimes you're not correcting me when I don't want to be corrected. And if I ask you to get rid of it, I mean that because I want all the students in the class to see what happens if we do it incorrectly. Because otherwise, they're going to experience this at home all alone, and it will be very scary. And we want it to happen here, where we're all together and supportive and can say, oh, look at this common mistake. So let's run this. Why is that invalid? I mean, I'm supposed to have a colon at the end of it. I'm not hearing it from this half of the room. Say it again.
Should be else.
Why? It's an L if, isn't that the same? No? It's not the same?
Does not have any condition, like she said. Else's don't.
I just want to make sure you heard her. Right, because if I have the word if, that means I have to have a condition. So if I have the word if, there must be something following it that specifies what's happening there. And it's a super common error. And what happens with that error is people will run up against a brick wall. And they're sure they have it right. And it will cost them a lot of time. So just try to remember, if the if keyword is there, there must be a condition. Because if you notice, Python was just saying syntax error. So you can think, I've got everything right. All right, so let's try it. Now I've got my D, I've got my L. Awesome, we're finally almost done. Let's do this. What's it bet?
I just added a backward slash and backslash T right after the L for anyway, like D for diesel at the very end.
Uh-huh.
That way you enter right away.
Oh, that's a good idea too. Mm-hmm.
That's what I was doing.
Is that what you're doing? Good. I think that's really good thinking.
So that, like, I did new line and then 2 tabs, so it sits right under all of it.
Ooh, fancy. Perfect. That's awesome.
That way you can kind of see what you're.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. That's a great plan. Okay, so our next thing then, I'm going to backspace, and here we want, finally, our radio choice. Now our radio choice, again, we're going to use our input statement, and we could copy that down if you want to. I'm just putting it in here because I need the extra practice typing. Now choose our radio option. We're going to have backslash and backslash T, and I want R for AM, FM, CD, DVD, thus, backslash and backslash R, I want G for GPS. And this one was a short one, that's all we have. So let's update our radio choice and make sure that it is in uppercase. And all of a sudden now Idle's like, oh, I know what that is. Here's some help for upper. Before it wouldn't do a darn thing for us, huh? Now our radio choice was not quite as complicated. So we just have a shorter if our radio choice equals our radio cost is going to equal 100. I'm going to leave mine else if because it's turning it orange. I want to see what it does. If radio choice equals G, my radio cost equals 400. Otherwise, I'm going to print out that message. You have made an invalid choice. Selection, it's supposed to say, isn't it? I'm making up new words. Perfect. We're ready to output. Now, if you notice as we're going through here, that we're not using any subprograms, so we just have all this code just straight through. Python's just going to execute one line after the other. We don't have any subprograms, any sort of modules here. So we're going to have to come back to this at some point and update that because this thing could use some modularization. Now in our output, we started out with an if statement. So if our engine cost equals 0 and our trim cost, or our trim cost equals 0, or our radio cost equals 0, now if you notice I put all of our condition within parentheses. That's not necessary. But I could use parentheses within that if statement if I needed to logically organize things. So whatever we need to do, we can. But if all of those are 0, we weren't able to calculate the price of the car. So we're going to output a message to that effect. Sorry, comma, space. Then we're going to add their name. Then we're going to add some more. This string is going to start with a comma because it's going to come after their name. Then this space, no cost for your. I'm going to keep going on a new line. Bless you. No cost for your car make, whatever they chose. Can be calculated at this time. Now, if we don't end up with that if statement being true, that means we did have enough information to be able to calculate their cost. So in that case, the first thing we're going to do is calculate our selling price. We want it to be equal to the base price plus engine cost plus trim cost plus radio cost plus shipping charge, and finally plus our dealer charge. So notice how using all of these different variables for our costs made our final calculation a little bit longer. It's not complicated, it's just long. but it allows us to tell if there was any sort of error in our input, because we can tell if any of those engine cost, trim cost, or radio cost items were still 0, we didn't get valid input from the user. So it's kind of a way to allow us to use that variable for more than one thing, because 0 kind of indicates there was an error condition. Now, once we've calculated that, we can print out our final information. We're going to print out their name, plus this message, space, comma, space, the car of your dreams, comma, your space, and then I'm going to add in the car make. Will cost you $1. And I'm going to add in our selling price. Plus, at the very end, we're going to have a period, space, happy motoring. Exclamation point. Whoa, that's a long print statement. So what about our selling price? Do I need to do anything to it so this won't break when we try to print it out? What do you think?
Need to turn into a string.
String, string, string. Does it work? Try it, some of you fast typers. See if we've got any silly errors somewhere.
You do.
What do we got?
Else if.
Yeah.
Doesn't like it? Darn it. Why did it turn it orange? Look at it
Because
tricking me.
It's still an else and it's still an if.
Still an
They're
if.
Still both
Oh, it's
Yeah, like you can do an and or next to each other. They're still both
still be all orange and it
Doesn't
still
mean
wouldn't
it's-
take it, huh? It's so mean. So mean. Any others? Well, I'm getting an error on my calculation. How about you? Is yours okay?
Found it.
Find it?
I found it on mine.
Where is it?
I had an extra plus.
An extra plus. Let's see. Mine is complaining about a string, so it makes me think that somewhere I've used the wrong variable name. Engine cost, trim cost, radio cost.
Oh, the base price of the string.
So we need to convert it that way. Do you guys want that base price to be an integer or a float? Integer should be okay. Now, good debugging, because it'd be hard to find problems like that that came from our input when we don't see the issue until we're trying to print it out or use it in a calculation. Good job. I got a really expensive Fiat. My GPS wasn't tabbing over because I had \R. So it wasn't giving me an error because those control codes are kind of ignored by Python. So we could have all sorts of weird characters in there. It wouldn't matter, so we went to run it.
Oh. The plus.
I put in the right letters for this and this. Those things.
There you go.
I could just get it right now.
Yeah, it just doesn't like that lowercase. What do you get?
Oh, let's go with the very best. Time, trim.
Oh, yeah.
I see that. What are you using?
Just looks terrible.
You don't need that. You got rid of it. Yeah.
And then he just to do like plus name
Everybody's working okay? You got an ear?
Next one.
Are you working?
So it doesn't matter if I put this whenever I run mine, I get price. Go ahead and run yours actually putting in proper answers.
That's the upper.
I'm gonna have to escort
Oh, for diesel weather.
So you guys are the experts, so you want to teach everybody how to use the phone? Yeah, I like it.
I can do it with it faster.
The one that we think is good because it's more like general for all of them.
And then no, it's lines in between.
Uh-huh, so you should be, yeah. And you should be able to get that. Cool, too.
Is that it? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, the one that we use before. Like I said, it's so you have to install all these modules and
Yeah, we have to choose each.
So let's plan on it. Python's gonna be installed, it's gonna be installed, everything will be installed. Okay, more problems? Before we fix all of them, let's take a look at what we have here. Everybody's ready for some lab time. We don't have a lot of time, but a little bit. This week, you do have some stuff. I know you guys have already been looking. We want Unit 3 of Code Academy. Copy and paste. Copy and paste. Copy and paste. In Code Academy. They're going to have you write if statements that are, 55 characters long. So you might want to copy and paste those from the description into your code. Make sure you know what they're doing, but you may not want to spend all of the time typing them all. Now the Runestone Academy Section 7, same thing, if statements. So both of these are different tutorials for you about decision making. So they should go pretty quickly. The Code Academy one can get long. Copy and paste, really mad at me because it can get long if you do all the typing. The program that you have due next Tuesday night, so step back. It's due Tuesday night. Is that okay? You guys have the day off Tuesday? Yeah. Is that okay with everybody? So just don't forget that these are out here. I don't like to change due dates because it just gets everything's all messed up, but I can if it's going to be a problem. But Tuesday night is kind of our night, so we'll just keep it that way. So the program that you need to write is a positive negative. It's pretty basic. So don't get mad at yourself if when you're looking at it alone, you kind of go blank. You probably won't. But if you do, get out your Python quick reference. Think about how would I do this and just start somewhere. So you're going to ask a user to input a number. Oops, I've got to fix this. Don't worry, no Raptor flowchart. I'll get rid of that. We just want Python. But we're going to ask a user to input a number. If they input a number that's positive, we just want to print out positive. If they input a number that's negative, we just want to print out negative. We want to print out 0 if they input 0. That's all. So don't make it more complicated than it is. And let me get rid of this Raptor flowchart thing, because you guys don't need that. You got this. I know you do. Upload your Python file. That should be all we need is just that Python program. Now, if you want to try it in Raptor first, just to get yourself thinking about it, that's fine, but you don't have to turn that in. So this one, if you want to start on it now and be trying to get it out of the way before the weekend, then you can work on those Code Academy and Runestone Academy stuff on your own. That way, if you run into questions, we can all help. All right, let's fix other problems. I'm going to end this thing.